All right, let's bring in Dana Perino now to talk about the week's headlines. Hey, Dana, nice to see you.
It was quite a week.
It was a crazy week. We're back in full swing. Let's talk about Ben Carson first. We just had him here on the show a short time ago, and let's hear what he had to say.
Okay.
I think they really have become the enemy of the people to a large extent, but I haven't given up on them. I believe that there is a phenomenon occurring where the people are starting to see through this. And they're starting to recognize that most of the media is on another planet. They have a different agenda. And I think it has a lot to do with the direction that our society is going in.
He referred to the press in that press luncheon the other day, too, as used car salesman. Right. You're someone who knows
used car salesman,
the press corps very well.
Yeah, I like the used car salesman reference. I think enemy is a little bit too strong, though I think he was responding to a question. Here's the thing about Ben Carson. He's got such a calm demeanor. He's also learning that when you put yourself out there as a conservative, you are going to get attacked. But I also think that he has a nice way of brushing it off, not worrying about it, and rising above it.
But does it appear that this was a targeted attack on him as his poll numbers go up? I mean, the media wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to him. Now his numbers are going up, and all of a sudden, on all the major networks, we're seeing his comments that he made on this curvy couch taken out of context.
I don't think that's just unique to him. I think anyone who has become a front runner has seen that.
That's what I mean.
Carly Fiorina in particular, I think you saw that. Donald Trump, I think, would say that he had a little bit of that as well. Way back in the summer, early summer, Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio both said the same thing, attacks on Ted Cruz. So that comes with the territory. And also, when you put yourself out there and you're talking all the time, things could get taken out of context. But in particular, one of the things of the week was the GQ attack, right? I didn't think there was that much to get worried about.
The headline was F-U, or it was, yeah, there it is. It was F. Ben Carson. Like, that was in print. F. Ben Carson was the headline.
Right. And so this is them trying to get attention. And they got it.
Right.
They got that kind of attention. But it's also kind of just the crassness of the internet. I mean, this is the way that they get attention.
But isn't this what Ben Carson and Trump and a couple others are talking about? They're talking about being an outsider, and they're talking about institutions in this country, whether it's government or it's media. So they've talked about both. Today, Dr. Ben Carson talked about the hatred and the intolerance of the media. And that's something we haven't heard, especially from an African-American Republican candidate. He's speaking to hate speech. He's speaking to intolerance in terms of his positions, his ideology, and perhaps his skin color.
I think that's one of the reasons people are attracted to him. His numbers continue to rise, and he has this ability to speak in a way that you want to hear more. He doesn't turn people off. Now, he's going to turn a certain segment of the population off, and it might be some people that are on the far left or that work in the media that don't like his approach or what he has to say, or don't think that he measures up, don't think he's going to would not make a good president. You have to accept that. The other thing that Ben Carson can do, and I think he did it well this morning, is to take an attack like this and turn it into a positive for yourself. Use that as an opportunity then to try to grow beyond your current base.
Right, and he has been able to rally the base, which is why his numbers are going up. May help him somewhat in the primary. But what about in the general election when you're up against people who are not looking at your Facebook and Twitter page, they're looking at everybody else's, like Seth Rogen, who echoed GQ and said, bleep you, at real Ben Carson too. And when the mainstream media is doing this, I mean, just this phenomena, it just seems to be getting scarier and scarier with this mob mentality.
Well, I think that he has really good staff. You know, Barry Bennett is a guy who worked at the Bush White House with me. He's on that campaign, and I saw him on television the other day, and I thought, that is good counsel that Ben Carson is getting. You can't worry too much about the general election because you have to win the primary. And their campaign actually has convinced me that they have some very good on-the-ground organization.
Wow.
That's where he has to focus. I wouldn't worry about Seth Rogen or GQ magazine.
Well, let's talk about the chaos in Washington right now because, boy, did Kevin McCarthy drop a bombshell on Thursday saying that he was going to withdraw his name as a possible consideration for Speaker of the House. Of course, sent things into a tailspin. And Paul Ryan immediately was saying, nope, I'm not going to do it. I'm absolutely not going to do it. And he has a job he currently loves. I mean, he wanted the job. This is his dream job that he currently has, right? Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. And now he's being called upon to take the speaker helm. Do you think he's going to do it?
The thing, we have the headline, Reluctant Ryan. That's actually been true for every election and new leadership position he has taken. If you read his book, which was very good, when he first runs for Congress, they call him and say, you should run for this seat. And he says, well, me? Really?
Right.
And he calls a couple of people and like, yeah, we really want you to run. Jack Kemp was one of them. He runs that. He's never lost an election, but he has turned down opportunities to run for governor, for Senate, and also, again, this time around for president because he wants the job he has now. However, I understand he's spending the weekend at home with his family, and maybe he will talk to his wife, Jana, and decide that maybe this is what he wants to do. But if he doesn't, we should all accept that and say, okay, he wants to serve his country in the way of revising and reforming our tax code. That's actually a really good thing that we need as well.
Right. I mean, can he unite? The point is that some have been making is that he's just like John Boehner politically, that he's not a firebrand and he's not a Tea Party. He might have some Tea Party tendencies, but he's also, he can act politically like John Boehner. Is he going to be another John Boehner?
Look, I'm a huge John Boehner fan, so if he was going to be like John Boehner, that would be great. But I understand what you're saying. So the Freedom Caucus, which is the group of conservatives that were really agitating against him, this is what I would do if I was Paul Ryan. I'd say, you promise me. I'm not promising you anything. If you want me to do this, then you are going to have to work with me, not the other way around. And I think that he could be a uniter, but I'd go in there tough. I wouldn't kowtow to them at all.
Dana, you're one of the great national experts on communication. Watch this montage of mainstream media attacks with us on the GOP, and then let's talk about what they need to do, the GOP, in responding to what they're seeing out there. Watch this.
Today's top story, it's this Washington whiplash. Congressional Republicans in turmoil.
I want to talk about chaos at the Capitol.
Can anybody in the Republican Party deal with them?
For right now, it doesn't look like anybody can.
The place is impossible to run right now.
The problem is there aren't that many people who want to lead a party that's this divided.
Well, there's wagging all over the place. I mean, the dogs are running amok.
And then to the surprise of everyone, Republicans pulled the silverware drawer out of the kitchen cabinet and put it over their heads and shook it.
So they're acting like Halloween came early. This is extra candy for them to chew on.
Is it chaos?
Yeah, but it's a good story. It's very interesting. And yeah, there is chaos. It's not the end of the world. No one's losing their lives over it. And it's intrigue and it's fun and it's politics. And politics should be a little bit more fun. You know, there's nobility in public service, that we have the best country in the world. And it's going to be, there will be a member of Congress that rises to the occasion and becomes a Speaker of the House. But I don't blame them for covering the story and saying it's chaotic because it is in turmoil right now.
Will it end all that kind of stuff once someone is named?
Maybe a little. It depends on who it is. Depends on who it is. And I think that there are some congressional women on the Republican side that could decide to jump in and lean in. And I think it might be time to start hearing from some of them.
Do you have some names?
Well, I think, you know, there's, yeah, sure. Kathy McMorris Rogers is one of the in leadership now. Marsha Blackburn is somebody that you probably know very well.
Terrific, yeah.
There are others, and so I think that it could be time to maybe look at some women that could be Speaker of the House.
And as we go, how will the strength of the Republican Party be afterward? I mean, if this is tough right now.
Well, sometimes you have to destroy something, like creative destruction, right? So businesses that got old and stayed and tired, you have to destroy something so you can build it back up and it can be stronger. So I'm not worried in that regard.
Yeah, Dana's going to stick around after the break. We're going to talk some more. We'll get you some coffee and some donuts.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
He's challenging your leadership, Mr. President. He's challenging your leadership.
Steve, I got to tell you, if you think that running your economy into the ground and having to send troops in order to prop up your only ally is leadership, then we've got a different definition of leadership.
President Obama getting grilled over Vladimir Putin. This is the Pentagon announces it's dropping its $500 million program to train Syrian rebels.
So have the recent events made the president seem weak on foreign policy? Back with us now to weigh in is the co-host of The Five, Dana Perino. Dana, is the president weak here, or is Vladimir Putin weak? According to President Obama, he says that's a sign of weakness on his part.
Right. Do you remember when Vladimir Putin invaded Crimea about 4 years ago? One of the things that the White House said and President Obama said is Putin is acting out of position of weakness. Okay, so, but this weakness apparently is transitioning into actual wars. You have people now in Ukraine that are under threat. You have the Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, the Baltic states, are worried. And then you have Putin. Maybe he's doing this for his own domestic audience, but what he's been able to say back home is Russia is now respected again in the world, and I did that for you. Well, and that means a lot to the Russians.
Yeah, perception matters, and it means a lot to people in other nations in the region, right, too? I mean, who are they looking for for the leadership, for strength.
Well, if you read any of the papers today, one of the things it says also is that Putin has been targeting the CIA's secret program for some additional people that were being trained, maybe outside of this Pentagon program, but Putin is targeting them. So now we know that this is actually an attack on us. So yes, I would say that is a challenge to the leadership. I understand President Obama doesn't want to admit that. I do think that in some ways they don't have a plan or a strategy, so we can't then flip the question and say to Steve, but this is what we're doing about it. That would be more effective.
Yeah, there's such a perception of fecklessness and being out of touch. I mean, he just met with Putin, and then within hours, they announced that they were going into Syria in this big, big way. Is that the best answer the president come up with on this issue of leadership?
It's interesting, Peter, because I just read, it was in either the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal, a story about how for weeks, apparently, the Russians were showing that they were putting a little bit of muscle behind their words in Syria, but still the White House was caught flat-footed. And I understand that they don't want to get more mired into it, but this idea of changing America's role in the world by withdrawing is not a good one. Secretary Rice, Condoleezza Rice, and Robert Gates both worked in the Bush administration, and Gates also straddled and did the Obama administration. Their op-ed in the Washington Post yesterday said the psychoanalysis from the White House of always saying that Putin is weak is not actually working. It's not effective. There are things that we can do to reassert America's role in this conflict.
It's been floated this week, of course, that we're heading into another Cold War. Do you buy that?
Not necessarily. No, I don't, and I hope not. But I think that we have to have a little bit more imagination than that. The Cold War was about communism. This is actually about the war on terror. And so, to me, there might be some similarities, but we have to have more imagination for how to fight going forward. And it doesn't just mean military. When I say fight, I mean that you have to bring your diplomatic game to the table as well. You can't just have a military option. Now it seems like, although President Obama has said Assad has to go, the White House is sending signals today in the paper saying, looks like he might have to stay a while. That should be unacceptable.
Right.
Dana, thank you so much for coming on your day off for your commentary and expertise.
Thanks, Dana.
Terrific.
Check her out on the 5, and also her great book, by the way.
And also my dog.
And also her dog. Thanks, Dana.